How's it going? If you saw the thumbnail and title of today's video, you'll know that I bought a car. But at the time of filming this, I don't know for sure if I'm gonna buy it because it seems like a real piece of junk. So let's go for a couple-hour car ride after I pick up some cash and go check out this 1999 Chevrolet Camaro Z28. But anyways, let's hop to a little bit of a driving montage and I'll see you guys when we go and check out the car. Sometimes I've found when I've been buying and selling cars over the years, if someone doesn't really know much about the car, there may be more done to it than they actually realize. So allegedly the car's got a 456 gear in the back. It's got a full SLP exhaust, the guy says, and I see that there's an SLP lid on it, you know, after looking at the ad. So it just leads me to believe that there's more to the story, especially because there's an aftermarket clutch in it, allegedly. The dude lost the paperwork kind of on everything from the guy that he bought it from. But I looked up the guy on Facebook that he bought it from, and I found his page on Facebook and Instagram, and he's a big F-body guy. Turns out he's got a bunch of 3rd and 4th gens over time, so there may be more to the story with this car, but we'll see. So far it checks out as being a 99 Z28. He sent me the RPO code list, and it matches the VIN on the title, and the RPO codes check out to a Z28. So I feel pretty good about the car not being like an LS swapped RS or something like that, because the Z28 badges are missing on the fenders. So you never really know what you're getting into, but if you know a little bit about how to look at the documentation on the car, you can actually tell these things for yourself. So, you know, one way you can tell is by decoding the VIN. It'll show that it came with a V8 engine. So this is an LS1 car from the factory. It also shows LS1 on the RPO code list, as well as Z28. So you know it's a Z28 factory V8 car. Additionally, I saw that it came optioned with GU6, and it has a limited slip from the factory as well. So this is a pretty good driver if you wanted one like that. If you want to have a fun little street car, this would be exactly the type of car you're looking at. He started the price at like $7 grand. He just dumped it down to 5,500 bucks, and they told me you'd take like 52 for it. So I'm hoping to get it in the 4s. I'd be real psyched, because in all reality, if you parted the car out, you may be able to get that much for it, let alone a full running and driving car, especially after I fix it up a little bit and give it some TLC. So I'm hoping that this will be a good deal, and yeah, we'll just see how it runs. It's like 136,000 miles on it, so it's got some miles, but in all reality, it doesn't matter that much with today's market as far as F-bodies go. It's not like it's some super low mile car, and it's obviously not priced accordingly. So I'm going to check out the car, see what kind of shape it's in, and I'll get back to you guys in a while. Alright guys, so we are rolling in the cheapest F-body, well, I should clarify, the cheapest LS1 power T56 shifted F-body you will ever find on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist. Now, I paid right around $3 grand for the car. You know, the engine's worth like 2,500 bucks, and the trans worth about 2 maybe if you were to part the car out. Now, the transmission is not perfect, and it likes to pop out of reverse, but the totality of the deal is really good, I think, because this thing drives out strong. Like a lot of things in the ad, it didn't show everything that was actually done to the car. So this car, it didn't say that it had an SLP line lock in it. It didn't say it had subframe connectors. It didn't say it had aftermarket lower control arms and a panhard bar. The dude, I don't think he knew it was lowered, but the car is lowered. It's actually a pretty good deal. The brakes are all good. The engine runs awesome. But as far as I can tell, the big downside is that the body's got damage on it, and it just needs some work. So this is a perfect car for me and the channel, and I feel really good about this purchase so far. But like a lot of things, time will tell if it's actually worth the money or not. But so far, so good with the car. The tilt's out of the column, it flops a little bit. I mean, the car runs out pretty good, all things considered. It's a stock LS1 with long tubes and a lid, so it's not going to set the world on fire, but it does drive good. So we're gonna go to a gas station. We've got to get fuel in both vehicles. And yeah, now the rear end's getting a little warmer. It does make a little bit of noise. It appears to be the factory 10 volt with an aftermarket lid on it. I couldn't tell if it was a TA lid or whatever the case may be. But yeah, so far so good in the car. I'm gonna find out if I can get the speakers to work because the antenna does not appear to be hooked up. I don't get any radio stations, but I'm gonna see if that works. And yeah, we'll report back when we get to the gas station. Alright, so a couple more miles on the car, and the power steering didn't work is one thing that we noticed immediately trying to drive it, and the reservoir is empty. So I asked the guy, I was like, does it leak, drip, burn, or anything? He's like, no, evidently a hose somewhere must be leaking, but it all looks pretty dry at first glance. So somewhere down in the depths, it must be leaking. In which case, we'll probably find out rapidly. Leak. You can see it down low now, it leaks. Something's gone on it. Yeah, there's a pretty good drip going, so there must be a hose that's out on it, unfortunately. So I'm going to lose fluid pretty quick. You can see it way down there. A little puddle started. But no big deal, we don't need power steering work anyway, so really what it needs doesn't matter to me at this point. I just need something. So, behold, there's what's in there. That's all res. And here we got ourselves one nice little bud. There's more in here, so I'll kind of start piecing it together. So there appears to be a cockroach in that one, but you know, you get that on these bigger jobs. And in here, on this, so now we're up to, you know, a bowl. I just can't believe it. It's kind of amazing. There's more in there. I'm gonna get this out of here because it really shouldn't be in the car while I'm driving, because ultimately it is mine now, which means that the weed is also mine. So I'm gonna part with this, and I will continue to show you guys what I find later. Well, on our way back, decided to take a small detour and find out what the car weighs. And check this out. Up here we've got 3480, 1940 front, 1540 rear. Save your money on buying the scales and go to your local weigh station and check it out. Kind of interesting. I had no idea what it might have weighed, but my buddy and I guessed within, like, I think I guessed 3420 and he was 3450 or 80. We were real close, but yeah, T56 car. It's got long tubes, it has tubular rear suspension, subframe connectors, so it actually is a little bit heavier probably than a factory type of deal. But yeah, anyways, we'll keep going on home and we'll go over the rest of the car. As you can see, there's a little bit of damage on it. We're gonna paint, fix up that fender, and continue to fix up the car. So we're gonna keep on cruising. We're getting a weight on the truck too, and it's showing 6,080 pounds. So that weighs, you know, not quite twice what this car weighs, but trucks are no joke. They are very heavy vehicles, and especially if you get into like a 3/4 ton diesel type of setup. I mean, you got a heavy vehicle going down the road. So now you guys know the truck's like 6,000 and this is like 3,400. So I got probably a half hour before I get home. So we'll continue driving the beast. It seems to be holding its own, knock on wood. And yeah, I guess when we get home, we're gonna park it, do a little once over on it, because it's gonna be dark by that time. I may have to show you guys tomorrow when we wash it. But yeah, we're getting there. Alright, so I got the front end of the car up in the air, and the high pressure power steering line fitting on the power steering pump reservoir is up here. And on the bottom of the car, comes down around the alternator here to the power steering rack, and it appears to be the line that's leaking, spraying fluid all over when it's running. So I'm going to crack these couple of fittings loose, get both the hose ends off and capture the fluid here, then we'll end up starting the car. So after that, we'll end up turning the wheel on the car back and forth, left and right a whole bunch of times, lock to bleed the power steering rack and the rest of the system. And hopefully we'll be leak free after that because the rest of the car is actually dry underneath. This little puddle right here is the power steering fluid that dripped out overnight because like you saw at the gas station on the way back, we actually topped it off because it was really low. So then we'll get to bleeding the system and then do our oil change. Alright, after closer inspection, we do appear to have the same exact line here, or at least it's extremely close. So I got my couple of rubber O-rings on each end. I'll put a little power steering fluid on it, get this new line stabbed into there, tightened up, and then we're ready to fill and bleed the system. I'm gonna wipe it off real quick, but I don't think we've got any leaks. There'd be a little bit of residual fluid down there, but I did brake clean, spray it and all that, so we'll see. Change the oil here. Pretty dark, but nothing alarming in it, so I think we got a good motor. I'm not noticing any glitter, nothing milky, nothing like that, and although I just ran it, it still looks like nice black oil, so I think we're good to go in that department. It has an older K&N oil filter on it, so swap that out with a new AC Delco filter. I'll clean up the drain plug, put it all back together, fill it up, and let's go wash the car. The car's gonna need some TLC yet beyond this. I do have a transmission mount for it because it's when you accelerate and decelerate, the shifter stabs up and down in the center console, so that's shot, and it appears to be the factory rubber one. I did just get a replacement rubber one. The polyurethane ones can have a tendency to induce driveline vibration into the shifter and cabin of the car, so on this particular car, I'm just putting a rubber one back in. The Trans Am over next to this car has a polyurethane one, an energy suspension one if I recall. And I have no problems on that, but on the third gen that I had, it actually introduced quite a bit of vibration. It was pretty annoying actually because it would change through the RPM band. So I'm gonna fire this up, check the oil level, and we'll get her back on the ground and then go wash it up. Alright, so filming in there was not going to work out. That lens clogged up instantly, but overall the car is pretty much what I expected after it actually is washed up, and you know, you can see we've got the rear quarter panel is dinged and worked all over through there. The front of the car is okay, it's not so bad. This would be like a really good track car if somebody wanted to go autocrossing or, you know, whatever. It's already got some dings and scratches on it, or, you know, even drifting maybe. It'd be a good car for that. But as far as I can see it, you pretty much need to touch nearly every panel on the car and then give it a paint job for it to be nice, maybe like the Trans Am is. So that's too bad about it. The body's a little bit worse than I was hoping, but it's what I expected. The wheels are in okay shape. They're OEM GM wheels. There's GM cast in all of them, so we have real SS wheels on here on all four corners. You can see it that way. And then inside as well, I believe it would be cast inside of the spokes. There's a couple ways you can look at them. This side of the car got damage all through here. We got damage on the leading edge of the door, and of course the missing fender that the guy said ejected running away from a state trooper at like 120 miles an hour, which, did it happen? I don't know. I don't really buy it. It seems as though he really took this thing off-roading and maybe hit a couple of things while he had it. But, you know, the car does drive good. if you wanted to buy a car like this and put a bunch of miles on it after you do a little bit of maintenance to it like I did, this would be the type of car that you could look for and maybe find. It'd be really hard to find one at this price usually, but you know, sometimes you get lucky and you find something that's real on the inexpensive side of things. So I'm gonna go drive this around for a little bit and let it dry, and then we'll park it back in the garage and wrap up this part of the video. Alright guys, so now that we have a better idea of what we're starting with here, and we got a couple of things fixed and the car washed up, I want to show you what I found under the back seat of the car, which made us look a lot closer at the rest of the car, which actually turned out to make the car way more interesting as far as its history or pedigree goes than it otherwise would have had. I would have presumed it came from northern Minnesota, maybe sold new in the Minneapolis area, migrated here and there a little bit, but has basically been in the area its whole life. What I found out is that that is so far from the truth, it's kind of crazy. Doing a little bit of digging, after we found the letter, which I'll get to, we found in the original owner's manual that this car was sold new by a fella named Billy, aka Rusty Cox, at Grand Chevrolet in Copperas Cove, or Copperas Cove, forgive my pronunciation, Texas. It was sold new there, and after pulling a Carfax, I found out it was sold new to a lady in Texas, evidently, or there was a dealer trade between Wyoming and Texas. After the car was sold new in Texas, it went to Salt Lake City for 10 years. So it was there for a decade before it was sold to somebody in Hawaii. That means that this car went over the Pacific Ocean to Hawaii for a few years when it was bought by the person that I got in contact with on Facebook. That person that I got a hold of on Facebook was because I had a name and some information to go off based on a letter I found in the car, which I'm not going to show you because it is a personal letter, and I'm mailing it off to him as a matter of fact because he has a whole shoebox full of these things. But the gist of it being, this is more or less a letter about Thanksgiving. And this is sent to the 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines in Kanohi Bay, Hawaii. So when I looked at it, I was like, okay, that's interesting. We started looking more and more at the car, thinking that maybe the guy brought it back, you know, from when he was stationed over in Hawaii, or whatever the case may be. But I didn't notice, even on the test drive, that up here there is an oil change sticker. When I looked at it, I found something really interesting. The oil change sticker is from Hawaii. Now, if you wouldn't think too much of an oil change sticker other than that it was last done on 4/20 of 2014. And, you know, it started to make me wonder, where was this car? Because unless somebody put it on as a goof or whatever the case was, it's odd that there's a letter mailed to Hawaii. That's oil change sticker was in Hawaii. So I was like, this car must have been all over the place or somewhere different. And what we found out is that it also spent 10 years in Hawaii after he pulled the Carfax. So after talking to the guy, he actually is the guy that purchased it from a private party in Hawaii. And I'm not saying I'm ever going to find out who he bought it from or anything, but he remembered clearly that he bought it from somebody in Hawaii at the time that had 2 Fox body Mustangs in the garage. So if there's any sleuths out there in the Kanohi Bay, Hawaii area, or maybe know somebody that's a domestic car enthusiast in that city or that area, you might be able to put 2 and 2 together and say, that's this guy's car. So if you have any information on that, send me an email at the email address below in the description. So if we can get in touch with more prior owners and get some more photos, I think that'd be really cool. Anyways, after that it got plopped onto a container ship. It got shipped across the Pacific Ocean again to, I would presume, California, where it was trucked across the country to the Midwest to St. Louis, Missouri, where he picked it up, or reclaimed it as it would be. If I recall, he owned it for a short period of time after that, after looking at the Carfax, where it was then sold between South Dakota and Iowa a couple of times, and then ultimately ended up in Minnesota, and now it's in Wisconsin. So this car has been all over the place. There's 131,000 miles. The first owner put on, I believe, 80 or so of those, and the next few put on the rest. So this car has been all over the place, and I've got photos of it from him when it was on one of the islands in Hawaii. So here's a couple of photos of it. There's a couple that he sent me on Facebook. Even at the time, back in 2014-ish, it did not have the front grille insert. It did not have the Z28 emblems on the front fenders. So this car is, exterior-wise, it's more beat up now, and the wheels have changed, but it's otherwise largely unchanged, which is interesting that all that stuff was, per se, deleted for so many years prior to me buying it. But anyways, there's a little bit of the history of it. I thought you guys might find that interesting. This car has been all over the place. I've never bought a car with a surprise history like that, but I found it interesting nonetheless. And I think it's also cool that he's going to get his letter back after all these years to add to his collection from his dad. And if you didn't notice the date on it, I found that letter on the 27th. His dad wrote it on the 28th. So the timing is serendipitous, to say the least. If I would have found it on the 28th, I might have pushed the car outside and gave it away for free, because I would have been totally freaked out. I mean, under the back seats of these cars, if you guys don't know, when you lift up the seat bottoms, there's usually hidden treasures in there, because for whatever reason, stuff just falls down beneath them and nobody ever looks under them for years and years. And in my case, the letter was under that seat bottom. That's a little bit of the history of the car. I hope you guys thought that that might have been interesting. Everything else in here, there's not too much else that was interesting in here. But yeah, we pretty much found out that that car has been all over the place. So I thought that was pretty cool, especially to get in touch with, I believe, 2 of the prior owners. I'll talk about the other one real quick next, who sold the car to the guy that I bought it from. But yeah, I just wanted to show you that. I'm mailing that letter off, so I wanted to film this little clip and give you a little bit of the history of it. But I will show you what the prior owner sent me about the guy that bought this car that did all the damage to it.